If your creative push has helped you, you can help the show by becoming a patron on Patreon. For $20, $10, $5, or $1 a month, you can not only show your support of the podcast, but also do so much to help to cover all the costs. Head to yourcreativepush.com/Patreon to find out all of the goodies that you can get when you become a patron at each of the levels, and thank you in advance for helping this show. Your Creative Push, episode 185.
It's all of it. Fitness, health, wellness, mind, body, creativity, they're choices. It's just you have to open the book.
Welcome to Your Creative Push, the podcast that pushes you to pursue your creative passions. I'm your host, Youngman Brown, and my guest today is Alex Hofeldt. Alex is a science teacher, podcaster, yoga and mobility instructor, fitness coach, and nutrition enthusiast. In his podcast, Beautiful Dust Specks, Alex shows the world the wonder and motivation in science. And Alex is one of my favorite human beings in the world, and Beautiful Dust Specks is my absolute favorite podcast. He was already on this podcast back in episode 76, which makes him the second returning guest of Your Creative Push. And he's also become a really good friend and a big motivation for me personally. So this interview ended up being just more of a relaxed conversation, but still incredibly inspiring. So lots of good things, and let's just jump right into the conversation.
I don't even know how to start this because it's we're friends.
Yeah. He's introduced probably from the last one. That was a fun episode. That was a while ago, wasn't it? That was probably months, summer.
Yeah, it was a few months, but it's interesting. It feels like a lifetime.
Yeah,
but it's only been less than a year.
Yeah,
since I started my podcast, and
me too. I pretty much a year. I think I started. My buddy bought me this mic for Christmas, and kind of hey, F off, you got to do this.
Right.
And then I think it was about a year ago, pretty close to today.
It's weird. I remember in December I was just being really nervous and starting to really formulate the plan to start it. And I think I started mid-January.
Yeah.
And I guess it's kind of what you got to do. That's what you did, right? You just started.
Yeah, I looked at it for a long. I wanted to do it for 2 years prior to doing it. I wish I would have, obviously, get going. Where years ago when I got into podcasts, I'm man, I think I could do this. I could do something, and I'd put it off. And then it took me a couple months of just swimming on the internet, being overwhelmed by host sites and RSS and legality. And then finally, it was just I paid the money for the logo. I bought that logo for $400 off 99 Designs. Is kind of you can't waste this money now. You got to do it. Right. And then one of my students wrote me a really nice letter, and it was kind of the pushing point mixing with being on Eric Tiver's show. I was on a podcast, and he said, your voice sounds good, and that was for some weird internal hurdle for me. So I was like, okay, no excuse, let's roll. And then, I just started episode 1. I'm talking at 400 miles an hour, and but we're getting better. You can definitely tell with you, too. You have a lot more confidence now. I can tell it in the shows.
Oh,
you're
too.
Getting better at you're not jumping the ums and ahs as much as you used to and stuff, which is all it's getting. That's always good to know.
Well, thanks.
Practice is working.
Yeah, and we talk about that on the show all the time.
Yeah.
You got to start and then not really worry about a finished product and just kind of ship it, and then just keep learning.
And you got to
not
figure out how to judge it. That's my challenge. Where I look back, where I'm
hard.
all right, I started, but then my brain instantly goes oh my god, those 6 months where I recorded 2 episodes. What am I? I could be at 50 episodes right now, and blah blah blah. And it's just whatever. At least you started, I guess.
Yeah, you do have to, and not really get stuck in that cesspool of just self-doubt.
Yeah.
And you can't be too hard on yourself too when you do have those gaps. It's tough.
Totally.
And I don't know if spending $400 on a logo or spending money on equipment, or for other people that are listening to spend money on art equipment or whatever it is, to put money down on something can really catapult you and really force you to kind of start, because it's like buying a gym membership. It's once you start paying, you kind of have to be accountable, You
got to do something. I always relate it back to that. I have a weird analogy in my head relating to the singularity ideas, the dawn of everything, to where if that's your singularity, you got to find some catalyst that's going to ignite this little tiny guy and see where it goes. Because if you don't start, you're never going to, there's no beginning. You can't have an end without a beginning, but the beginning's easily the toughest part. I talk about that in my yoga classes. You got in here, you're good to go, you got to the mat, that's the toughest part. The easiest part is staying at home. The hardest part is getting your car, getting here. Now you're here. Now who knows what'll happen?
Yeah, absolutely. You just got to show up. Before we got on, you were talking a little bit about how, I mean, we've been going for a year, like we said, but how you're still a little scared. Can you talk about that a little bit?
I don't really know where the fear comes from. It's a really odd thing. My biggest struggle, and when I get real downward spirals every once in a while, is just this idea that like this is just noise, like it's just in the ether, and what's the point of this? And it's just like, and this idea of my biggest fear in life is squandering gifts and wasting time. So if I do all this half-assed, it's not going to go anywhere. But if I go full in and spread out all this time and I still fail, I have some weird fear of like proving myself right that this was all meaningless, which is just a useless thought pattern. There's absolutely no reason to have that in your brain whatsoever. It's just that weird negativity bias, I guess, of being a human, and just the fear of doing it wrong, doing it incorrectly, and it's also a fear of not doing it as well as I could. I have kind of a deep fear of what it could be versus what it is, and if I did X, Y, and Z better, knowing I have the capacity to do that, knowing I'm not giving all that I could give to this, every once in a while that really has a tendency to terrify me. But I just try and step back and just send it out and see what goes down, because what's the point? Just enjoy the fact that you're doing it, and it's still an amazing, and try and focus on the good things. I'm really trying to, when I get a good email or something, really almost print it out and look at it every day and just remind myself that that's one. I'm not at 10,000 downloads an episode and making sponsors and changing the world, but I changed one guy's life. I met you. There's so many positives just to take from literally taking my voice and throwing it at a microphone. It's about as easy as it gets.
No, you're so right, and I actually just wrote that down. I wrote, you need to get those emails before
Totally.
you said that, because I think that, like you said, there is that fear of just that, not just podcasting, but whatever it is that you're doing, just putting yourself out there, putting your voice out there, putting your kind of creative spirit out into, like you said, out into the ether, and it is scary when you kind of only hear your echo back. You don't hear that. Those people saying, hey, we get it. Like, hey, cool. Like, so getting those emails, I print out all mine too.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And just kind of keeping a little arsenal of inspiration as well. I think that's like the most important thing. And for people listening, if you ever do get inspired by either of our shows, please reach out. I think we kind of generously give our email out in episodes, but it is really important to kind of receive that feedback. That's the whole point of being a creative person and putting yourself out there, is to get that feedback, to know, hey, this is what's working, this is what's not, this is how it's changed my life. And I think you've mentioned on your show too, that's like the currency, and that's the currency that I go by, is that kind of feedback.
Totally. And I'm almost sad at times where I feel like I've been in the podcast scene for a while, not with my show, but I mean, I voraciously listen to podcasts. It has to be thousands of hours in the last 4 to 5 years I've listened to. And at the beginning, it had this total vibe of it was just information being thrown and snowballing out there into the world, and just see where it goes, and it would change my life, and I could share it and give it, and I wanted to be a part of it. And I think also the fear of, do I want to get paid to do this one day? Sure. Like you and I were talking about, we have our jobs, and would I rather do this as my job? Yes. My big, hairy, audacious goal is I want to be a public speaker. I want to have a TED Talk. I want to take my science motivational mission to the world. And I feel like but I don't have that killer instinct. I still want it to be beautiful and core and gorgeous, where it's just organic this, not like, hey, come on my show and click filter this and funnel into that, and I'll sell you this and you sell me back that, and join my, just, that stuff is just noise to me. It's more about like this guy Tom, who gave me his email, and it says that I've been struggling with, I got into depression, didn't realize, it took me a long time to realize. I was struggling with my wife, my kids, my family, my job, and I bumped into your podcast randomly, and it's changed my life. And I'm here to tell you that thank you for your beautiful mind and all this. And it's just, I really, that should be it, man. Like that should be enough. that email should be all I need to keep going with this forever and ever, just because that's one guy. And it's just hard in the world we live in today, where we're supposed to be the next YouTube sensation, the next podcast sensation, and that maybe a lot of fear comes with that, of just, can I ever be that? But also, do I have to want that? I guess I just want to be that dude and just organically be genuine and do that without having a program that regurgitates my Twitter account every week. I'm sure people do that. I get tagged in posts I used to be in, so there must be some bot just reprogramming the Twitter feed to just go over and over just to get that hashtag out there. And I don't know. Do I need to do that? Is that something I need to just embrace the chaos with, or do I stay me and stay at 500 downloads an episode? It's an interesting paradigm.
Yeah, well, I think that the answer is definitely still be you. And I think for everybody, it's you have to find that kind of authentic voice and put it out there no matter what. But then there's the other aspect of, if you want to have that be your job, if you want that to be your main source of income, the way that you live, that you have to find a way to I guess make money. And I think we both feel the same way, where it just feels gross. Like I started putting up these advertisements in the beginning of mine, like that people can support the show by shopping on Amazon, by going through my link. It's an easy way to help the show with, but not really asking too much. It's just going to that link. And also, with Patreon. And I guess I'll get into advertising too at some point, but it's just like one of those things where it's like, I think a lot of people do want to be that Tim Ferriss. They want to be that, fill in the blank, whoever like the main person is that makes millions of dollars doing what they do. And I think that you do have to, kind of like you're saying, find your tribe, be okay with whatever you're at right now, and just kind of grow organically that way.
Yeah, because if you kill the tribe, if you kill it because you're not that, and you look at any of these guys, look at Gary Vee and all of it, and a huge part of their mission is just patience, and try and just remember that, and remember that the patience is there. And like we were talking about before, where 2016 for me in this podcast, the core of it is I made some waves, I got good, I got better, I changed Tom's life, I met you. There's a lot of positives, but overall the core is, sure, this is practice. I at least started it. It's still out there. And now 2017 could be where I was in 2016, and that's something just to be positive in itself. And 2018 will hopefully be better in 2017. You just onwards and upwards, and just like biology, you just keep evolving and adapting and that's evolution, baby. That's the end result. We're the winners.
Yeah, and I think that you hit a good point. I think you do. I think you instinctively feel like what's right, like where you should be moving. And I think, especially right around the new year, I just had an episode about New Year's resolutions. It's right around New Year's Eve, you have this feeling of, okay, this is like a really good checkpoint. This is where I failed the past year. This is where I did good. This is where I want to go next year. This is what I want to improve upon. And I think a lot of time your year has a theme. And for me, it was learning too. And sometimes it's good to kind of be able to learn without the audience and to not have to like worry about, promoting and stuff like that. It's like to not have too many ears on you as you're, episodes 1 through 20, where you just sound like a different person, where you're just stuttering and tripping over your words, kind of like I am right now. But I think then you can move on to the next thing. But the point is that you have that kind of instinct, that feeling, and just go with whatever feels right. If it doesn't feel right to kind of promote your work at this point, don't do it. Focus on getting better. Focus on putting good content out there, and then worry about that whenever it feels right to go for that,
Yeah, totally. Nothing's ever going to be perfect. Perfect is an unobtainable thing, and I'm sure if you talk to any of these people we talk about, I'm sure they have the same exact fears that we have. It's all just part of the creative experience. And if you sooner you embrace the chaos, I always use that concept, just embrace what it is. And I try, and just like what you were saying, I'm trying really hard to stop using the word failure, my fails on the year. And my girlfriend always says everything is progress. And if you look at it from that light, there's part of me that's like, all right, nonfiction, woo-woo book. I always I struggle sometimes. I always have a hard time reading nonfiction. Everyone gives me these books of the art of giving no F's and all this. And there's a part of me is just like, this is so corny. But then at the same time, it's all beautiful language. And if I can get that idea of the fails, and sure, do I have a lot of regrets creatively on the year? Yeah. I mean, I fully regret doing a marathon. I ran my first marathon this year, and I really want to feel good about it. I truly don't. It made me feel terrible. I've had hip and knee issues ever since, and I lost a big chunk of my podcast, and I don't know. But whatever. In the end, I did it. I don't have to do it this year. This year we'll move on and we'll learn. I have new experiences, new things to talk about, what we're talking about, neuroplasticity, new little realms of existence in my brain that are wired up that I can now share with the people around me, and just kind of look at it that way. Just everything's going to be progress. And again, if you're listening to this and your first challenge in the new year is just the start. You just start going down some road of the infinite possibilities that it is that's you, and see where it takes you. Because if you don't start, it's going to be 2018 before we know it. 2018 will be another year of, I should have started X. And just your goal, if anything, is just to at least do something, just an incremental thing. There's a weird part of me wants to write a book this year. If I was thinking, you really look at it like, oh my God, a book. And I write 1 page a day, 2 pages a week, whatever. It'll be done. Sooner or later it'll end. But if I just keep a blinking cursor on a blank screen, it's not going anywhere. Just start typing.
Right. Yeah, you bring up a good point with the marathon thing. I think it's okay to do something and to kind of regret it.
Yeah.
Or not necessarily regret it, but just be like, okay, that wasn't the best. But I think that kind of a feeling is way better than being like, like the end of the year being like, well, I wanted to run a marathon, but I didn't. And you don't know that feeling. Like you didn't get to the other side of running a marathon, whatever your marathon is. And I think it is really important to, like you said, to just do it. Just start the process of something that's on your mind, whatever it is, and get it done. Just do it. And then maybe it doesn't work out where you're like, okay, I'm going to run a marathon every month. And I love running marathons. Or it might be like, okay, I can cross that off of my list. I know I don't want to do it, but hell, I did it. And congratulations to you for completing it, dude. Even though it didn't work out like you wanted.
It worked out. I got it. It was just, I mean, I cried at mile 18. Like literally my girl.
That's what they say, right? 18
oh my God, dude.
The point.
I didn't train right. And so it was an interesting little idea of life where I got into this thing, even though I trained hard, I didn't get past 16 miles in training. So everything after 16 was a total black box. So like you hit 16, you're like, all right, here we go. And it rained the whole time. And it was the Milwaukee Lakefront Marathon. Bite me. There was 5 minutes of lakefront. It was just running through neighborhoods and cornfields. And you're with the same people in front of you for these two little ladies, dude. Two girls. I totally remember. One girl said, "My name is Jackie. If found, talk to Nicole." And the next one next to her said, "I'm Nicole." And I read that shirt 700 times throughout the day. I beat him by about 5 feet. At the end. Yeah. They were run walkers. They'd walk, they'd run up ahead of you, then walk and fall back. And run up ahead of you and walk and fall back. I'm like, oh my God. It was just insane. So yeah, mile 18, I saw my girlfriend and she's out there. She's like, how you doing? I'm like, I'm okay. And I look at her, I'm like, am I crying? She's like, yeah, you are. And I'm like, I really want to stop. I don't want to do this anymore. Oh my Lord. It was, the last 6 miles took me an hour and 8 minutes. And if you know anything about running, that's a pretty long time for someone who runs. And oh my Lord, that last 6 miles was the absolute hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life. Not the scariest. I've done scarier things, but just pure, I don't want to be here and do this right now. Just pain of every step was just insane. But like you said, it's over. And I think about it in terms of the scientific method sometimes, that one of the tenets of science is no data or invalid data is still data. Scientist learns just as much from a null hypothesis or an invalid hypothesis as they do a valid one. Like I hypothesized I could train and maybe find a new outlet of creativity in marathon and endurance training. Nope, hypothesis incorrect. I don't ever need to do that in my life again.
Right.
But now I know something. I've learned something about myself. I've strengthened a different part of me that I didn't know before. Because like you said, if I was still just talking about it, I have no clue. Now I know marathons are not for me. Moving on to the next phase of my life. I've answered that question. And that's an interesting way. If you look at it that way, like it says, everything is progress.
No, I completely agree. And dude, to get to that point, because I don't run anymore. My wife runs, but I used to run, and 10 miles was the longest kind of race I ever did. And I know that feeling when you're getting close to the end and it's just like, wow, I just want to stop. I just want to just quit. I just want to get in a car, drive home and jump into bed. And to get through that, the end of that is like one of the hardest things, and people can't really understand. And I can't understand either. 10 miles is not 26 miles, but people just don't understand until you're in that thing and you really have to push yourself. You have to find those other gears. You know what I mean?
It's a weird thing. It's looking into my yoga world and knowing what I know now about all this fitness. And, I was really big into extreme sports. I used to be a sponsored skier, and I've done, I don't know, it sounds too woolly, but I've done like very death-defying things, and I relish that. I still mountain bike, I still ski, and I've almost died on multiple occasions just being an idiot. But looking back, it's all just mindfulness now, and I look at it from that angle. And when you went on these runs, you'd hit 10 miles, and between 10 and 13, your brain would space out, and you were listening to a podcast, and all of a sudden, like, 3 miles, and it was just these weird kind of euphoric states you got into, and then it was just interesting too. It's all just neural feedback. It's just this idea of learning what your body can do, and I kind of did it. I wanted to do it just to prove to myself and others, if anyone listens to me or anyone cares what I do in my life, students, listeners of the podcast, friends, family. I'm a personal trainer, so my people. I wanted just to show them that I did a marathon simply because I chose to. I just wanted to take this ball of cells that is me and just put it into a situation and see how it adapted. And in the end, it got it done. I had to do it. I didn't quit. I had a huge fear of quitting multiple times, almost like sick with fear with my girlfriend in a dark corner of my house. Like, what if I don't do this? All these people looking at me. I'm a personal trainer. I'm this podcast guy, blah, blah. And what if I get to mile 16 and I quit, and she's like, then you quit. You walk off, you tried. How many people in the world have not even attempted to run 16 or 13 or 2, And it was that took a lot for me to get over. I had a really chronic fear of like, I truly don't know if I could do this. Cause once the training got long, I was just feeling destroyed after every training session. I was just like, holy crap, this is not easy. I honestly thought it'd be easier. But in the end, we did it. And it's an interesting look back. And do I regret it? Probably. The more I talk about it with you, I'm regretting it less. I'm re-looking at it in a new light and stuff. It's an interesting endeavor.
Good. You bring up a really cool point is that, just saying that you want to do something and doing it. And I think a lot of people struggle with that. I'm not a podcaster. Like I've talked about this before, and I think I'm or at least I used to be a pretty poor verbal communicator. Like I'm a good, I think, written communicator. Like that's my jam. But you just can say, okay, I'm going to be a podcaster, and then you just start it, and then you become a podcaster. Like, that's all you have to do is just start doing something, and you get to call yourself that, Now you get to call yourself a marathon runner.
Yeah, exactly. It's an interesting thing. I talk about that when I was looking at business cards once with Stephanie, and I'm like, I'm not a science communicator, I want to be one. She's like, no, you are. You're a science communicator, like you communicate science on the internet. In my head, I'm not famous, I'm not big, I'm not Bill Nye, so I'm not a science communicator. But no, she's like, you are. You're a science communicator, you're a podcaster, you're a marathon runner, like. And then we were talking about before, you just get better. Like, your delivery is so much better. I've listened to a lot of your shows since the beginning because, like we said, we connected over a year ago when you were pretty much starting. We gave each other feedback, and instantaneously when I turn on your show, there's a different vibe to it. It's neuroplasticity, like you and I were geeking out about it a while back. You're learning.
No, for sure, yeah. And yeah, like you said, it's okay to like not put your best work out there, or to kind of think that you're not putting your best work out there. And that's actually what makes you continue to grow is that feeling of I progressed, but I'm still not where I want to be. And I'm still not the peak, the pinnacle of, podcaster, but I'm working on it, and I think that that's always really important to push the goalpost further as you continue to grow, and to not really reach that goal until, who knows.
Have you ever pondered what you'll do when you feel like you have put your best work out there? Because I almost think of that as a gift. Like, I can sit here and have you put out your best work on Beautiful Dust Specks? Heck no.
Right.
I'm nowhere near it, and I know you haven't done so either. But I would almost, if I did put out my best work and it stopped growing, then I feel like you could, maybe it would hurt, but maybe it'd be peacefully. You could walk away from it. Like, I'm not going to quit now because I know I have left in the tank. But it's like, okay, I emptied the tank. I tried it. I did my best. It didn't pan out, That's rev up the engine and go in a new direction.
Right. I think you're right. I think that if you do reach that point, it might be peaceful, but I don't want to quit. So if you do get to that point, it's just, you're right. It is kind of like a gift to not be there.
Totally. Because we have no clue, but you stop. I always think of it as like, you keep going. We do another episode, another. We don't know what's going to happen. At any given time, you could bump into somebody that changes your life forever, put you on a new path. If I stop, I know the outcome. I stop, I sell this microphone, I delete Audacity, I have 41 episodes saved on my hard drive. It's over. That we know the outcome. The outcome is it's over. But if we keep going, then it's just onwards and upwards. It's just, we have no idea. Could it be nothing? Could I be 50 years old and still talking to Beautiful Dust Specks to 500 people? Yeah, very easily. Most likely the probability would say yes. But if I stop now, then it's done. Then it's over. That's the end. It's an interesting thing if you look at it that way.
Yeah, for sure. Just to embrace that chaos, like you say.
Yeah, one of my favorite quotes.
Okay, so let's get into neuroplasticity.
Ooh, here we go.
Yeah, you talk about this on your show, and actually I've been talking about this a little bit recently too, just with different guests bringing it up. How do you think that maybe explain neuroplasticity and then how it can help creative people?
So neuro just means neurons. It means your nervous system. And when you look at yourself in this way, you're this big ball of matter. It's been recently described to me as like the body is the roadways, where the mind is the cars driving down the roadway. So your nerves are really the pathway that you think of as the body. The mind is in essence the electricity that goes through it, the sense that runs through the tunnels that are your neurons, which is amazing to think about in regard. I mean, you're a machine of 10,000 trillion cells of more complexity you could ever possibly imagine instantaneously. We've talked about this last time you and I were on the show. Your probability of you is 1 × 10 to the 2,685,000th.
Love it.
And that number's not even that. I looked into it. It's not even big enough. I don't think you can calculate the true number that you get to be you and I get to be me. It's amazing. But you also have these very, very specialized cells that are called neurons. And neuroplasticity, they usually talk about the brain. the brain is made up of these cells that don't replicate. They don't go through mitosis the same way the rest of your body does, just replicating over and over, building, creating new jobs. But it's billions of these things. It's billions of cells in your brain, which billion relative to your body is not that big of a number. But your whole life, the cells have the ability to rewire, reconnect, and create new roads, create new pathways for neurons to go down. So when they think of plastic, like a plastic you can melt down and turn into anything. You can melt down, turn it into something new. You can add to it, all made of the same stuff. So neuroplasticity is this idea of you are you're plastic. Your entire body, your nervous system, for muscle, for movement, for mind, for body, for spirit, for thought, you can learn constantly. And you can also unlearn. Neural pathways that aren't used will shut down. And honestly, the more I drill into it, this is my number one big ponder. My gratitude episode I did, maybe episode, was that like 34, I think I did with mine. I really enjoyed that episode. The one after I did about ranting about Trump a little bit.
Which was necessary.
I felt that was a weird episode for me.
It wasn't ranty though. You weren't ranty at all.
It was just like that. I guess that's it. We'll come back to that if you want. But
yeah, that's okay.
So the neuroplasticity thing is just it's a superpower, and I really don't know how else to put it. I look at science as an idea of superpowers. I wanted to start my podcast of just saying like superpower number 1 and talk about something, but it didn't turn into that. But neuroplasticity is epic, and if you look at it from the creative lifestyle like you are, it means you're almost infinite in terms of possibilities, and it's an amazing gift.
Yeah, and I think it's one of the most inspiring things about continuing to learn, continuing to surround yourself with people that are kind of like-minded, or people that you want to be like, or are doing stuff that you want to also do, you know what I mean? Because you learn from those people. They actually, as you said, they change the way you think.
Oh, they change the matter in your brain. It's not even like that's why it's crazy. It's past thinking.
Right.
It's rewiring the fundamental matter that is in your mind. And you're a lightning rod of cognition. So like you're saying, like you and I hang out, like we are wiring our brains for a more creative lifestyle. Like I'm changing physiologically the constructs of my mind by having this conversation with you. And I'm taking it all in, and you're around someone, even their body language, their negativity, their littlest tiny things, everything your body picks up on more than you could ever comprehend. Cause there's those ideas where your mind can't truly, if it comprehended everything that came into itself at any given time, you'd have a bit of a breakdown. Like the amount of stimulus that is surrounding me right now is too much for my brain to comprehend at any given moment. So your body compartmentalizes. The way I understand it, science doesn't even understand how your brain can truly do that, how it can stay present to some regard. And, you know, I battle with ADHD and stuff like that. So I have challenges with that in the opposite direction, where I take in too much, you know, and I have to streamline my consciousness and stuff. So it's just insane. It's something I can talk about, and I can learn about more and more and more. And it's just amazing. It's just, like I said, it's a superpower. It's a gift. And now that you understand it, I'm changing your brain with these words, drill into it, drill down on it. And it shows you that, like, the idea that you're plastic is so wonderful. That it's like a warm, fuzzy blanket that I can learn and do whatever the heck I want to do, versus like we're ingrained to think that we're concrete, you know, like I'm a male, I'm a female, I'm a jock, I'm a nerd, I'm smart, I'm stupid. That's the horror of teaching. These, you know, you think you're this concrete thing, that you are a dumb person. I'm not creative. I can't sing. I can't do a podcast. Whatever it can be. You may suck at it at first, but as you do it, you're getting better on your show right now because you're practicing. You're changing the fundamental matter of your brain to be wired to a creative podcaster. And that's epic. That's so freaking cool.
Right. You're right. The idea that you're this concrete thing, like, I've never been a singer, you know, so I'm not going to sing. For anybody listening, whatever that thing is that pops into your head where you're just like, I don't, you know, I have spent my entire life not being this thing. So clearly that's what I am. I'm not this thing. And it's hard to kind of make that leap to get to the other side of it where you are that thing. But all it is like you said, it's surrounding yourself with inspiring people. That's the point of this podcast, is to kind of push you through that. And for me, podcast in general changed my life. It changed the way I thought about things. Like listening to, we talked about this before, Rogan, podcasts like your podcast, just realizing that there's other people that think the same way that you do, that you just don't encounter in normal life, because you're probably surrounded by people that are stuck in those loops, those feedback loops of, I'm not this thing and I'm defined by my job, so I'm going to go to work and I'm a guy that just works this job and that's my life. So that's what I'm going to talk about all the time. And I'm not going to talk about these other dreams that I have. I'm not going to talk about the things that I aspire to be. It's tough when everybody's just stuck in that loop. So we got to like find a way to get people out of it. And I think podcasts are a great way to do that, to just put these earbuds in and just find people that are doing it, you know?
Yeah, you never know. I remember your first message to me. You said, we were on the Podcaster's Paradise thing, and you said, I love your show, man. This is great. Your podcast is the show I didn't know I needed.
Yes.
Or I didn't know I wanted, or something like that.
100%.
Or I always wanted and didn't know I wanted it, or something like that. I was like, man, that's freaking cool. And for me, it was the first one where I was just like, for me, even like, you know, I'm starting a science show that's designed to be a motivational, you know, use science as a motivational tool. I've never heard of many other shows like that. They do it without saying they're doing it, but then you were the first person like, okay, someone's picking it up. Like, at least I got one guy on board. Like, it's an interesting thing to think about. It's just awesome. It's so cool to just, it sounds meta. Like, all this stuff sounds yoga, Eastern philosophy things. Like, you can attune yourself to the universe and you can be what you want. But the science is saying this is real. And if you look at these neurological studies and the things I talked about in my gratitude episode, these are doctors using fMRI scanners showing that there are regions of the brain that ignite with negativity, negative emotions, regions of the brain that ignite with, you know, great gratitude emotions. Like, there are portions of your mind that stimulate when you do this, which makes sense. You are the manifestation of your mind and your neurochemistry. You know, like, it sounds stupid, but you're in love. Honestly, it's just a chemical concoction released by your endocrine system, which I think is cool. Others think it degrades love, whatever. But when you look at it from these angles, like, the science now is showing this, that if they put people in, and there was a study I was researching a little bit because you told me you were going to talk about this. They took two groups of people and they had one group practice piano for an hour and a half, do the same piano exercises, they called it. That was group A. Group B just imagined themselves doing these exercises while keeping their hands steady, and both of them showed equal growth in the same region of their mind.
That's,
you know,
so cool.
Stuff like that is just, and these scanners, there's meditation scanners now showing that literally increasing matter in the mind. Like, there's portions, you can increase gray matter in the brain. Like, that's the cool side about this that kind of blows my mind a little bit, is I struggle with the Eastern yogi, being a yoga teacher. I want to kind of, you know, get into the crystals and the oils and all this stuff, but my science brain gets in the way. But if you going into it a little bit, there's a lot of woo-woo, but there's also science is kind of validating the woo-woo a little bit. And it's a wild ride to think about. It's a really cool time to study and look into this stuff.
So that meaning, like, it's more of like a placebo thing where you're, as long as you kind of believe it.
You'd think it was a placebo, but, you know, the placebo effect, the more I think about that too, it seems like, well, then it's just like I don't know how to put this into words. Like, you kind of use the placebo effect as like a negativity. Like, well, it's just a placebo effect, but it's in you. Like, that is something your brain is capable of doing. So therefore it's real.
It's real.
It's not a fake thing. You know what I mean? Like, the placebo has this kind of oh, well, it's just a placebo effect. Yeah. You know, the fact that I can cure diseases with sugar pills just because my mind believes that it's a sugar pill that's going to cure cancer. That shouldn't be something like, oh, poo-poo. Like, that should be studied. Like, why aren't people studying the placebo effect more and more? It's what keeps me kind of in the vein of Eastern philosophy. And I've been going to this lady, my girl Tamara. I pay her a lot of money to do myofascial release techniques with my active lifestyle. But the first half is all this energy balancing where she's talking to my body and all this. And I went in there and I was like, whoa, what am I paying for here? You know, like, this is crazy. And I'm 50-50. Honestly, I try. I lay on the table. I'm like, all right, body. Like, she tells you to ask your body to do X. I'm like, all right, body, let's go. Let's roll. You're paying this girl a lot of money. Like, get into it.
Right.
You know, so I'm trying not to be super skeptical guy on the table. And my other friends are like, do you feel better? I'm like, yeah, I do. There's nothing else to say. I do feel better after a session with her. So who the hell knows? The more we know, the more we don't know. When you embrace that, you're on the right track.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that has to do with just mindset, just putting yourself in a better mindset. Right next to me, I've talked about this a couple times on the podcast. I have a throat chakra candle, you know, for communication. I'll read it. It says, I am aligned with my highest truth and communicate this with love and honor. My words echo softly within the universe. And, you know, for people who listen to the show, they know I'm just into like magic and the idea that the universe is magic. And I think that it is. Like, I think you can look at it scientifically and you can still, like, it's magic. Like, nobody can understand it. You can't even comprehend. I mean, you talk about it much more eloquently in your podcast, like pretty much every time, just about how amazing it is, how vast and how interconnected it is and how interconnected we all are. So yeah, when I light this candle, does it make me communicate better? No. But it makes me feel...
You don't know that. There's there's no way of saying in either direction with that.
True, but my point is, like, who cares? Like, it makes me feel better, and it's like this kind of like comfort thing that I do, and by lighting it, I'm thinking about being a better communicator and doing that from love. You know, it's just like putting yourself in that mindset of like, okay, I'm gonna make this my goal. You know what I mean? As opposed to just jumping on a call and starting to talk. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's the neuroplasticity. That's where the power lies, where you are putting yourself in that. The beginning is the awareness. And if that candle acts as a lightning rod to remind you of that, you are strengthening that pathway that will allow you to stimulate regions of your brain that will make you a better communicator on this call. Versus if I have like a negativity candle, you know, like this guy's about to call and you're going to be the worst interviewer on the planet. You know, you can actually, since everything can upregulate and downregulate in the brain, just comprehend that for a second. So I can sit and meditate. I can practice. I can, you know, be healthy, be happy, be all these things with the idea that it will take time. I have to be patient, knowing that my brain is getting better at those things. My whole body is getting better at those things. While also, if I'm spending time in gratitude, in love, in happiness, in positivity, I am not using the negative sides. I'm not using the anger sides. I'm not using those regions on my brain, and they've been proven to shrink. You know, like, wow, it's not only can I get better at X, I can downregulate Y. So you can choose. It's like a choose your own adventure book. Or like all these video games now, I play a lot of games where it's like, where it's, what is it, FIFA, you're playing this FIFA game and everything you respond to the person creates your personality. And I keep trying to be like the fiery douchebag. And I'm always like, my girlfriend just laughs because I always pick like the team played well today. Like it was really great versus like, I'm the next God's gift to soccer. Right. So I'm like, I just can't do it. But anyways, sorry. It's like the neurons of the game. My brain is doing that. And, just sit with that for a second. If after the show or whenever, just think about that you can, it's not even like you're putting yourself out there. Like science is validating that I'm changing the fundamental ideas in my brain. And not only that, just again, back to the wonders of the mind, that this brain can do these things because it's been proven to literally stop making synapses. That's one of the down regulations and the importance of these brain trainer games now for elderly and stuff like that is that you need to flex the muscles. You need to get the neurons firing because if you don't use it, you'll lose that pathway. And once it's gone, you have to either rebuild it or you won't ever know it's gone and you just have a new you without that pathway there. So choose your adventure.
I love that idea. Choose your own adventure. You really are much more in the driver's seat than you think. And I think that can be pretty inspirational, motivational for people that aren't quite happy with, the way that they've been going with their creative pursuit or just with anything in life. It's just all you have to do is basically choose your adventure. You have to choose to go on that adventure. You have to choose to kind of go forward in it.
Which is the scariest thing. So if you're listening to this Terrifying. And you're like, oh, like, but that's the toughest part. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, that's the toughest part. Period. Like keeping going and quitting, not quitting is scary, stuff like that. But starting it and God, I don't know. The first time I stared at my computer for 2 hours one time before I redid the script. I think I redid the intro 15 times, and then finally it was just like, oh my God, bro, click record, speak. Send it, and I just did it. And then there's just a sense of ease. And then the next time it gets easier. And we lose sight of that in life. We lose sight of our ability to learn. And as a teacher, my goal as a science teacher is to create lifelong learners. If I can get you just to enjoy learning, that's it. The reason I'm a fitness instructor is I want you to see what your body can do. I don't want you to be trapped inside tight hip flexors. I want you to see that you can choose to work the hip flexor and keep going. And we lose sight of that. People just think like, I have tight hips. You have tight hips today. You don't have tight hips a year from now, and people you lose it. I started my CrossFit journey, you've never seen me really, but I can only reach down to about below my kneecap. And now if I'm warmed up, I can put my head between my legs. You know what I mean? Like I can do a full forward fold, and it wasn't an overnight thing. It took years of study, years of practice, years of getting away from it, coming back to it. And it's all of it. Fitness, health, wellness, mind, body, creativity, they're choices. It's just, you have to open the book.
I absolutely love it, man. Yeah, I think you're right. You do have to get moving, and you do have to realize that it is, not to get too corny with going back, but it's a marathon. It isn't a sprint. And even if you do kind of run, walk like those ladies that you're following,
totally,
you can do it at whatever kind of pace you want, as long as you are moving forward and not just kind of standing on the starting line and being like, well, but I'm not a runner. but I'm not a painter, or but I'm not a writer. It's just starting that journey, and it's going to take a while, but just getting moving is the most important thing.
Yeah, there's so many metaphors from that marathon. I remember around mile 21, 22, I'm a bro at times, and we do CrossFit, and I've competed in CrossFit, and in my mindset, I'm like, I'm going to make it to 20, I'm going to bro up on this, and I'm going to get it done. And I can't describe to you, it was pain. There was no other reason for it. Every step, I had these cramps in my quads. It felt like someone was pulling my quad off my bone. It was the most intense cramps in my life. And at one point, you get into this, I was getting this vicious cycle of like, you're a pansy. Like, are you kidding me? You can't run 6 miles, this, that. And then my mind was like, dude, that's 6 miles. That is not a short run. You've done this for 20 miles already. And it was just like, I can't walk. And it was just like, dude, just walk and finish this. It didn't work out the way that it worked out. Did not go as planned. You did not break 5 hours. You're going to hopefully you can break 5.5, like just walk, finish this, be proud. And it was a really interesting, looking back on that, it was like the creative experience where I just had to embrace what was with me at that moment. I had quads and my cramps. And if I would have kept going, maybe I would have pulled a muscle. What if I pulled a muscle and couldn't run walk? I was done, I had to just step back, embrace what it was for the moment, and finish. And I finished. And that was, I guess, this is making me feel better about the marathon. So thanks, bro.
Good, man. Well, you should feel good about it. Like, it doesn't, like you said, you set goals for yourself. And I think a lot of people will set goals for themselves, especially this upcoming year. And as long as you're making progress to that finish line, it doesn't matter when you get there, as long as you get there. And, it's good. My episode about New Year's resolutions was, I had people set the New Year's resolution, and then I tricked them, and I was like, all right, I want you to finish it by February.
Nice.
So like, I want them to do like a 30-day challenge and to just go for it. You know what I mean? Just get as much done as you possibly can through January, and can you imagine like all the time that you'll have then? And you'll be light years ahead of the place that you would have been in 1 year's time. Like, it's just like a cheat code almost.
Totally.
But you have to go through that hell of January. You know what I mean?
And it probably won't be hell. It's just you probably realize this too. Like, is it scary? Yes. Is it hard? Yeah. But I mean, it's not like, I'm not killing myself. It's enjoyment. You learn to love it. And then really quickly you realize like, oh, I got this. I can do this. Is it perfect? No. Am I learning? Yes. Like, so just, I mean, like, it will feel like hell, but understand your mind's going to change, your body's going to change, and it'll just go onwards and upwards. So again, just back to the start, man. That was good though. I like tricking them like that. I always like that idea of like, why wait a year? Just go, do it now.
Right. Exactly. And, do you know about Parkinson's law?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I talk about that all the time. It's that, if you give yourself a goal, or if you have a deadline of like, say, a month to complete a project, you will take that entire time to complete it. I am certainly 100%. I do most of the work right at the end of that month. But you could do that same amount of work in a week. Or if you extended the project to 2 months, you'll take the whole 2 months to do it. So I think that, if you set a goal, I think if you shrink that time, as far as, if you set a goal that I'm going to complete this, I want to do this by the end of the year. I think that a year is a really long time, and you can definitely do it in a much shorter time. So really try to like chunk those things down to like a week, a month, and just move on with life,
Totally. Just dive in.
Dude, Alex, thank you so much for coming on the show again. I could talk to you all day long, about this stuff, about science, although you are the science man. So
you're getting better. You're more eloquent than you think when you start talking about it. I understand what you're saying. No, dude, this is a blast. I love talking to you. You were, like I've said before, you were a big inspiration early on in the podcast, and I come back to our conversations, and we got to make sure we don't do this. This was too long in between conversations for the podcast and just for bros.
Just for bros. Yeah. Let's hop on again sometime soon. If you missed the first episode with Alex, you can go back yourcreativepush.com/76. It was actually a double episode, so /77 as well. We talked about how people email you need that feedback. My sister and my wife talk about that episode all the time.
Nice.
My sister is like my biggest fan, and she always talks about that teacher that was on. You got to get him back. And my wife also loved that episode too. So
that was fun. That was a really good episode. I enjoyed that one too.
Yeah, man. Me too. It was one of my favorites. So you can check that out, and also check out his podcast, beautifuldustsspecks.com, right?
Yep, that's it.
His latest episode was about the science of Santa Claus, and it was one of my favorite episodes. But so speaking of running, he has to run for, what is it, like 109 centuries just to get rid of the cookies?
Yeah, that was funny. I think it was 109,000. No, it was centuries, so it was 190,000 years, yeah, just to burn off, at an 8-minute mile pace to burn off all those cookies and milk.
Oh my god, it's ridiculous. It's a really fun
drunk,
episode.
Right? He's drunk off the
He's
sherry
wasted
too, which is funny.
So good. Alex, man, thank you so much again for coming on the show and for giving us that push, dude.
Oh, my pleasure, dude. Keep it up.
Keep it up indeed. My thank you to Alex for coming on the show again. We talked about themes, themes of 2016, your 2016, and themes of your 2017, and kind of how you get the feeling about where you need to go, both in life and your creative pursuit. And 2016 for both of us was about starting that most difficult thing that Alex was saying, to go from not doing something to doing it. And I think for both of us, next year is about continuing. And like Alex said, if you are doing something and you stop doing it, you already know the outcome. You know that this thing will no longer have legs. But if you keep going, it's onwards and upwards into the unknown, where you never know where you'll end up. Who you might meet, like Alex said, that could change your life or set you on a new path that you never could have imagined. So really, I hope this inspired you to keep moving, to keep going forward, and to not give up. And one of the ways to do that is to find a community, to find friends, to continue to use that neuroplasticity of your mind to your advantage by surrounding yourself with inspiring people that will help you on your journey. And thank you to Alex, because he is one of those people for me. And it's really nice for me to be able to kind of, have these kinds of conversations with people that are in the same boat as I am, doing the same thing that I am. And hopefully you were able to find some inspiration within that conversation, within the context of our podcasting journeys. As you know, we are all in this together in our different creative pursuits. So hopefully you were able to find that inspiration. But that is all I've got for you today. Hopefully you were inspired to go and get your work done. So go and get it done. Keep on keeping on. 2017 has just begun, so keep that momentum that you have going into this new year and keep it going throughout January, throughout February, throughout the rest of the year, throughout the rest of your life. Become that creative person that you know that you are, and don't stop. Keep going onwards and upwards. But I hope that you have a wonderful day, be productive, have a great weekend, and we will see you on Monday if you need the push again. I love you all, and we will see you then. Bye. Never miss a push. Head to yourcreativepush.com/subscribe to find the easiest way for you to subscribe to the podcast.